Welcome along to another members video on the channel. It's great to have you with us again as we dive into our Learn Microsoft Purview series. This one all about data loss prevention, DLP, a massively important component to the Microsoft Purview compliance and protection and governance story. Why do you need DLP? It should be self-evident by now if you've been on this channel for any length of time or working with Microsoft 365. Ensuring that your sensitive information and content is appropriately protected and governed is essential to any organization. In the new Microsoft Purview portal, we're going to take a look at how things are with DLP, how it tightly integrates with adaptive protection features within insider risk management and other areas of not only the Purview portal, but also within Defender as well, and Entra also. So without any further ado, let's dive in and take a look. So Microsoft Purview DLP in the new Purview portal at purview.microsoft.com. Let's take a look at it. How have things changed, if at all? What can we be looking at that is relevant and important to protect our sensitive information from loss or leakage? Well, let's have a look. Let's go to Solutions, and we want to look for data loss prevention. Let's see what we get on our overview screen. So first, we have some listed tasks to access analytics with insights and tailored DLP policy recommendations. You can see that there's a whole fresh new look in general to this. I wish that solutions would go away, but oh, there we go, done it now. But let's see what we've got in terms of these recommendations. So we can learn about analytics. This is optional. It's going to take us 2 minutes. Let's take a look and see what that is about. And it takes us to a learn.microsoft.com page. And it's going to talk all about the sensitive information types used most in your content. So we can learn all about that and so on and so forth. Next, we have turn on analytics for risk detection and policy refinement opportunities. This is a preview feature. It's highly recommended. It should take us about 2 minutes. Enabling analytics allows you to detect potential risks, discover blind spots, and find opportunities for policy improvement or fine-tuning. If we click onto that, we're going to fly out panel here. And what have we got here? When turned on, signals on user activity, sensitive data, sharing patterns, policy information are scanned every hour to generate insights that will help you set up and refine your policies. What are the benefits? Analytics reports on top risks, blind spots, and policy information, or that should be improvement opportunities every week based on the past 30 days of data and one-click recommendations to mitigate these risks. Sounds really cool. Win-win so far. We get new recommendations every week, and these are based on not only risks found in the tenant, but also best practices from the industry. What to expect? It will take 7 to 10 days to start seeing analytics and recommendations in your tenant once the toggle is turned on. The scans run every hour on your data, present in audit logs and policy data. You can turn off analytics using the toggles on the settings page. So, okay, well, I think this is a great idea. Let's turn that on. Absolutely wonderful. And it's going to take us into back to the overview page, and we get a little green tick next to that now. But I just want to go back into that, and I want to go in to see what the manage settings options look like. So here we are, analytics and recommended action settings. So analytics, what have we got? We've got activate analytics on or off. It's a simple toggle, and enable email notifications for new insights. Grayed out at the moment, not quite sure why, but we'll figure that out as we go. But that's going to get instant alerts via email every time new analytics insights are available. Maybe we need to have some analytics actually available for that to work. All right, let's go back to the overview page. You'll notice something else at the top here. We've got an informational alert. If your role group permissions are restricted to a specific set of users or groups, you'll only be able to view data for users in those groups. Well, makes sense. So let's have a little look at viewing the role groups and see what my permissions are. So one or more of your role groups is restricted to specific admin units. Yeah, we've done that before in previous videos, and this is going to help control which users you can manage. As a result, you might only see a subset of all information in your organization. So we can see here what we have in terms of those roles. Okay, it makes sense to me. That's fine. I can happily dismiss that now. That is cool. So what else do we have on our overview page? We've got stay informed about DLP. We've got some handy links here. Follow the setup guide. So what is that going to do for us? Is that going to take us actually into the admin.microsoft.com portal? Okay, interesting. Set up Microsoft Purview information protection. I see. I don't know if I want to go quite off on such a tangent here, but that's something to be aware of. That's fine. We can read the official DLP docs. That's going to take you to learn.microsoft.com, and you can get access to blogs as well for news on DLP and watch some recent DLP videos. Further down, you're going to get activities and health overviews, information on setting up adaptive protection. Now, this is telling you that you can control conditional access via adaptive protection. We already have data loss prevention set up with adaptive protection, but it's telling us about an Entra feature, conditional access, which can also leverage this adaption or adaptive protection feature as well. And adaptive protection is something fairly new to the world of Microsoft. It's been around a little while now, but what it's going to do is it's going to, based on users being members of certain groups or situations, it's going to apply those protections based on that sort of condition. So very, very worth looking into. I have done a video on this before. I will try to remember to link to that in this video. What we can also do is we can extend protection to auto labeling. It's telling me here I've already got policies protecting sensitive email or sensitive info, that should be, in email. I can extend that protection by quickly setting up an auto-labeling policy that applies a sensitivity label to email, matching the same conditions as your DLP policies. This is great. It's giving you tips right here in the overview screen. If you click Get Started, it's going to tell you all about the policies that match, and you can create those auto-labeling policies right from there. Wonderful stuff. You can protect files shared in Teams as well. You can automatically configure Teams DLP policies to protect files shared in team messages. So when you turn on automatic file protection for Teams DLP policies, associated SharePoint sites and OneDrive accounts will automatically be included in all Teams DLP policies. So you can go to view the existing Teams DLP policy. So we can do that right here and see which ones we've got. And we have two here. We've got adaptive protection policy for Teams and Exchange DLP. We've got DLP default policy for Teams. And we can turn on that automatic file protection for those policies as well. So some really cool quick wins that you can do right from the overview screen here. Really cool stuff indeed. I'm going to just close out of that and let that go and do its stuff. And I'm going to assume that it's going to complete. But here we go. It's loading. And it's taking us back to our overview screen. So let's continue going down, and we can see an encryption report. So we can view the details of content encrypted by user, the total number of encrypted emails, and encrypted by a particular policy. We can see new incidents right here, and we can go right to them. So we've got an incident, DLP policy. This is default. HR and privacy information protection policy, match for an email with subject PIM, and Monica Geller's assignment has expired. Okay, so this is a low severity warning, just saying that a particular user has expired for access to privileged identity management for PIM access. So that's fine. I can happily ignore that one. And we're getting similar alerts there. But you can get right into these alerts just by clicking onto them, and it's going to take you right into the security portal, into the Defender portal. So you can jump around, and this really does show you just how tightly integrated together these portals are now. Absolutely wonderful stuff. And you can see the attack story here and the incident graph and how that all links together. I'm just going to click on back there to take me back to where I want to be, because it's one of the drawbacks of hopping around these portals sometimes is you can get lost. You can go down rabbit holes and forget what you were actually here to do, because things are quite distracting and they draw you in. So that's the end of the overview screen. Wonderful stuff indeed. Next, we have policies. Now, if you've been familiar with some of my previous videos on DLP, this will not be new to you, but just a little quick recap. Here we have policies that we can set up for data loss prevention. I've got a lot in here, as you can see, and I've created these over time, and they're in different conditions or statuses, shall we say. They are prioritized from 0 to the highest number, and that's how they will be processed. So we've got a default policy for devices. The priority for that is 0. So that one is going to be processed first. We see the last modified date. We see the status of it, which is in simulation with notifications, which basically means it's in a testing phase where notifications are going to be sent to admins and or users. We've got a default DLP policy for teams. We've got lots of different policies here that are available. Many of these are on. Some are in simulation without notifications. There's one other status that you can apply to a DLP policy, and that is off. So let's take a little look at one of these policies. Before we do that, actually, let's just acknowledge this warning triangle at the top. It's telling me that some of my devices are not in an updated state. So go to onboarding devices to see more detail. I know exactly what this is. If I go into devices, it's going to be the MacBook Pro problem that I've had for a little while, and I have as yet been too lazy to log this with Microsoft support, because that is my last resort to try and figure out why on earth the configuration is not updating to my MacBook, despite all sorts of different steps and attempts. So let me just go back. So I know what that is. I'm comfortable with that at the moment. We can view the role groups from here again. That's fine. I'll just close that off. Let's take a look at one of these policies here. Default policy for devices. If I click onto it, it's going to open the flyout panel. And just as a brief recap, and what I'll do, I'll link to more previous or more recent DLP videos, so you can take a look at those as well if you're just getting up to speed with DLP. But DLP, data loss prevention policies, are designed to detect content in your Microsoft applications, so Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, and in Teams as well, and in files and folders and sites at the content, the folder level rather than the item level. So here we go. And we can see we have the default policy for devices here and the status of it. So what's it doing? The status, well, it's telling us the simulation has expired. There were no matches found. This is one of the perils of doing this in a demo, in a tenant which doesn't really have vast amounts of data. So quite often it's hard to fully demonstrate some of these features. But what's it going to do? This policy is detecting the presence of credit card numbers in files on devices when users perform specific activities such as printing a file. When detected, the activity is only audited, not blocked. Admins will receive an alert, but policy tips won't be displayed to users. You can edit these actions at any time. So you can see the granularity of control you can apply with these DLP policies. You can have different stages of testing them and rolling them out. So locations, devices, all accounts. So this is a device, an endpoint DLP policy, and very, very many variations of the types of DLP policies, as we will see as we go through this. The policy settings, we have 2 rules in this policy for a low volume and a high volume of detection, and what happens based on that criteria. We can go in and we can view that simulation if we want, but I don't particularly want to do that. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to edit that DLP policy. Now, as this is in simulation mode, there is no edit button. I actually have to click on view simulation in order to get at this policy and make changes to it. So if I click on that view simulation, as I've done here, it starts to load, albeit a little sluggishly for some reason. And when it does load, we can have a look at what's going on with this policy. So here we are, and we can see that the policy simulation has expired. We actually have the option to turn the policy on now. We can download a report if there was anything interesting relating to that report. We can delete the policy, we can restart the simulation, or we can edit the policy and tweak it. So let's have a go at that. That's what I wanted to try and do. And if we open up that edit functionality, it seems to glitch and take us back to the overview screen for some reason. So that's quite interesting. Let's just close that and let's try and do that again. So, okay, opens up a new window. It takes us to the old compliance portal. That's interesting. I wonder if this is a limitation of the new portal that's not quite there at the moment. So we're in compliance.microsoft.com. Here is our policy for devices. If we click onto it there, then we should be able to edit that policy. So let's see what that does. And here we go. That was a bit slow, a little bit glitchy, but you have to have a little bit of patience with it. Right, so we can edit this policy, and this experience here is pretty much exactly the same. It's identical, near enough to what you would see when you are creating the policy. You can't change the name. The name is set in stone. So that name is there for the life of that policy. You've got the description. You can change that if you want to. You can add or remove admin units to the policy here if you'd wish to. So I'm not going to do that. Here I can see what is going to apply to this policy. And it's all about, in terms of locations, it's all about devices. And I've targeted to all users and groups. I'm getting a warning here once again that some of your users' devices are not in an updated state. That's my Mac not playing ball with the configuration update. So that's going to cause me some problems. I don't have a Windows device yet at the moment that I have applied in this way. I probably should get around to doing that at some point for a more effective demonstration. I will make every effort to do that. Okay. So what I can do here is I could edit that if I wanted. I could exclude users and groups, or I could go to specific users and groups. But I selected all users and groups to keep that nice and simple. You'll see the other choices that we have here for DLP policies. You can target them by exchange email. So by doing so, we can have all, or I mean, if we edit again, we can do all groups or exclude or do specific groups. We can do the same with SharePoint sites. We can have all sites, or again, be specific. Same with OneDrive accounts, Teams chat and channel messages, etc., etc. Instances, on-premises repositories, Power BI workspaces. Instances, I have to admit, I've forgotten what that is. Let's have a look and see what that might relate to. I do know what this is. In my head, it's something to do with Azure, maybe Sentinel related. I've actually done a video on this before, but it's gone right out of my head what that does. Never mind, I digress. So we can make any changes that we want to do here. Click on next. It takes us to the advanced DLP rules. When you're setting this up from scratch, you have the choice to create whatever rules that you want. You don't have to have two different ones. You can have one rule fits all, but it's generally adopted in this way, where you have a low volume of content versus a high volume of content, and different actions depending on what they are set to. So the low volume here, the conditions, will match content that contains any sensitive types of credit card number, and evaluate predicate for message or attachment. And the actions, it's going to audit or restrict actions or activities on devices. The higher level of volume is going to do a little bit more. It's going to audit or restrict, but then it's going to send alerts to administrator. And we can get a more detailed view of what these look like by clicking on edit. So if we edit the high volume of matching content, we can see that this rule is matched if 10 or more credit card numbers, hence the instant count, 10 to any, are detected in a file when a user performs certain device-related activities. When detected within a 24-hour period, the activity is only audited, not blocked, and admins will be alerted in an email. So, I mean, we can tweak this as well. We can add other conditions here. We can add further sensitive information types. We can add conditions based on sensitivity labels or trainable classifiers, and so on and so forth. Under the actions, what we can do is we can change these as well slightly. So audit or restrict activities on devices, service domain and browser activities, upload to a restricted cloud service domain or access from an unallowed browsers, audit only. But we can change that. We can change that to block with an override or fully block. Block with an override means the user will be prompted that they can override it, but they will need to provide a justification. We've got the option here to choose different restrictions for sensitive service domain restrictions. So we can add groups here and make selections there. We have the option to select paste to supported browsers and the actions we take there. So this detects when users paste sensitive information in a text field or web form using Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, with the Purview extension, something you have to download and install. We've done this before on this channel. Or Firefox with the Purview extension again. And what you can do is you can, again, select the actions there from audit only right through to fully block. Then we've got file activities for all apps, and we can select to don't restrict that file activity. And then we've got a lot of things we can select here. We can choose copy to clipboard, copy to a removable USB device, network share, printing, etc., and what we want to do, again, from audit right through to block. So you can see the level of control you've got with these policies. We can configure user notifications to inform users and help educate them on the proper use of sensitive info. We can allow user overrides from M365 services if we want to as well. We can control what happens with incident reports and alerts and some additional options. And even what happens if this rule is processed, what order it's going to be processed, we can change that. So pretty cool stuff indeed. So there we go. The policy mode, run the policy in simulation mode, show the policy tips while in simulation mode, turn the policy on if it's not edited within 15 days of the simulation. I turned that one off because I didn't want it to do so, but I'm quite happy with this policy now. So I'm going to turn that on immediately, and I'm going to let that do its stuff, and I'm going to submit that. So there we go. Now, what I'll do very, very briefly when we have that submitted is I'm going to go back to the new portal because I want to do this in the new portal as much as I possibly can. Let's go back to policy and see for a policy that is on. Let's have a look at this default healthcare info protection policy. Now, this does not relate to endpoints, so I want to just show you, if I can, how the different types of DLP policies have different actions available within the rules that can be included in them. So let's take a look at this one. Now, once again, I found that I couldn't edit that in the new portal, so I just paused the video briefly, dropped into the compliance portal, and went to edit the policy. Very frustrating. That needs to get sorted out, definitely before the December end date for when this portal will allegedly be deprecated. So anyway, let's edit this policy. Again, we have the same sort of options. The locations in this case are, well, we've got devices on this one also, so but we've got some other selections. In fact, I just want to take devices off that one because I want to have this, well, basically non-device related. So let's just have a look at this. Well, we have one rule in this case. We've got the default healthcare information protection rule. Let's edit that and see what we've got in here. Similar principles, we can edit the rule, we can see the conditions that are applied, and we've got some sensitive info types and all sorts of other things. We've got a group name there. Wow, lots of things going on. We've got some trainable classifiers. Actions, we don't actually have any actions in this case, so this is basically just a notification policy. It's not restricting anything. It's sending out notifications. We could add actions here if we wanted to. And you can see there are different options here because this is not a device-based DLP policy. So what we have here is restrict access or encrypt the content in Microsoft 365 locations. So we have a choice to block users from receiving email or accessing SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams files and Power BI items. And we can block everyone or block only people outside of your organization. So different levels of actions that you can apply in rules, in DLP policies, depending on the type of locations that you select for the policy. So watch out for that. And policy tips, test with notifications. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, what's going to happen there, and I have again covered this in earlier videos, which I will link to, is when a user is in Excel or Word or PowerPoint or on Outlook, or even within their OneDrive, and they can go through their files, they're going to get these tips. It's going to show them if there is sensitive content matching. They're going to get in Outlook a bar at the top which tells them, and it's going to show them what they can do, what actions they can and cannot take. So that's what policy tips are all about. So do check out some of my earlier videos to see that in action. I'll link to some of those so you can take a look. But absolutely wonderful stuff indeed. Let's go back to the newer portal and see what else we've got. So I think we've drained policies as much as we can in the new experience. What does alerts look like? What's going on here in terms of alerts? Well, we are going to get a lot of information here. I'm going to get this warning about my onboarding of devices again. It's going to tell me here that insider risk severity and user activity context are not available at this moment because data sharing is turned off in insider risk management settings. So we need to modify that if we want that in place. Insider risk management is tightly integrated into DLP. We'll get to that as we go through this series. I have covered insider risk management on the channel before, so you can check out those existing videos, but we'll get to that in this new and updated look in the new portal. More about role group permissions, and we're getting a did you know message here. Did you know that you can now manage your DLP alerts in the Microsoft Defender portal? Alerts are automatically combined into incidents, which provide a comprehensive view into potential policy violations. Wonderful. So you can go right to the incidents page right from here if you want to. That is very handy to know. I've not got any alerts to show in the time frame that I've selected. If I did sort of change that, I don't know how far back I can go. I can't go any further back than that 30 days by the looks of it. So, but you could view and process those alerts here if you needed to do so. Activity Explorer is bundled right in here to the DLP section of the new Purview portal as well, and we can see activity related to content that contains sensitive information or has labels applied, such as what labels were changed, files were modified, and more. Label activity is monitored across Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, all the usual places, endpoint devices, and support for more locations is coming soon. And we can learn more about that, which is really cool. So we can see here across the last month or so, we can see files that were created, files modified, files read, and so on and so forth. So we can get a lot of information there based on that. We can export that if we want to as well. So Activity Explorer is really powerful across all of the Microsoft Purview features that we have. Wonderful stuff indeed. So check that out and explore that. Classifiers, we have the ability to look at our trainable classifiers, our sensitive information types, and our exact data match classifiers right within the actual Purview application or feature now. So we can do it right from within, which is great. Previously in the old Purview compliance portal, this was a section of its own and not linked quite so well. I'm not going to drill down into these features. We've covered those before on the channel, and I've linked to them in this series already, so take a look. We've got Explorer. We've got the Data Explorer, which I took a little look at in one of the previous videos as well, and we can see here how we can match the sensitive information types to content in our organization, where there are sensitivity labels applied, sensitive info types, trainable classifiers, EDM classifiers, retention labels. Great data here indeed. It just takes a while to present itself for some reason. We can do the same by sensitivity labels, retention labels, not too different from the old experience, and we can get access to the classic Content Explorer here, which is a similar and familiar experience to you, I'm sure. We can view Activity Explorer right from here as well, so we've got a little bit of a duplication there. But that is the gist of data loss prevention in the new Microsoft Purview portal. I do and did want to just briefly touch on quickly linking to insider risk and DLP as well. What you will see in some of these new DLP options is you're going to get reference to insider risk levels in terms of adaptive protection. So adaptive protection DLP policies will trigger in conjunction with insider risk levels, depending on certain circumstances. And these are defined in terms of how risky a user's activity is and can be based on criteria such as how many exfiltration activities they perform or whether their activity generated a high severity insider risk alert. So what this means is we have an adaptive protection policy for insider risk. And the conditions for these insider risk levels, there are 3 levels. We have an elevated risk level, which means user performs at least 3 sequences, each with a high severity risk score, and you can toggle these. Moderate risk level, user performs at least 2 data exfiltration activities, and then the minor risk level as well. And then some settings of activity going back certain time frames. So the user assigned insider risk levels, so we can see which users are affected by this. We can see the tie-ins to conditional access, to DLP, and here we have the DLP policies that are affected by those insider risk management scenarios. Let's just close that off a minute to get more screen space. So we have got 3 policies here. Let's take a quick look. We've got an endpoint DLP policy, adaptive protection for endpoint DLP. And it's telling us here the insider risk levels affected by that. We've got elevated, moderate, and minor. Same for the next one. And then we've got Microsoft AI Hub, which is adaptive protection in AI assistants, which is so cool. I really do need to get this working properly by getting either my Mac properly sorted on this with onboarding, or I need to just get over myself and put a Windows device on and show it to you properly. So let's take a quick look at some of these in action. We'll start with this adaptive protection one here, and we can just quickly edit that. Is it going to let me do that here this time? And it looks like it's loading, and it's going to let me do it. Here we go. So what have we got? This is our DLP policy. This is the default adaptive protection policy for endpoint location. And if I remember correctly, I set this up with guidance from the portal. Actually, this was created for me as a recommended policy. If I go through this again, I can tie it to admin units if I wish. And what's this going to apply to? It's going to apply to all users and groups that have devices. What have we got in our rules? Let's take a little look. The adaptive protection block rule for endpoint DLP. So we've got a block rule and we've got an audit rule. So let's take a look at the block rule. So what have we got in here? So the conditions. The file type is detects when a file or document is one of the following types. It's a word processing, a spreadsheet, a presentation, an archive, or a mail. And we can add file types into here if we want to as well. And it turns out we can't because we've got them all selected, which is great. Actually, if we go back to that, it tells you the format of this that is applicable, which is really cool. And what we've got here, additional condition, insider risk level for adaptive protection is the elevated risk level. So we've got that selected rather than moderate risk level or a minor risk level. So this is adaptive protection at work here. We can add further conditions if we want to. We can do more, but try and keep your DLP policies as simple as possible. You can add further groups here if you want to as well, and so on. What are the actions here? So audit or restrict activities here. What we're going to do here, we're going to block when uploading to a restricted cloud service domain or access from unallowed browsers. We're choosing the block here. File activities, apply restrictions. We're going to block all the way through here. The ones we've got selected, nice and simple. We've got some alerts there as well. So let's close out of that one. Let's just close out of this particular policy as well and go back to our insider risk management DLP again. I want to take a look at one more before we finish off, and that is the one all about the Microsoft AI Hub. I just want to call out what this one is doing because I think this one is really cool. And if we edit that one, we can see that this policy uses adaptive protection to give a warn with override to elevated risk users attempting to paste or upload sensitive information to other AI assistants in Edge, Chrome, and Firefox. So, as an example, you're copying some sensitive data potentially from your locations in OneDrive or wherever else, and you're pasting that into something like ChatGPT. God forbid, why would you be doing that? But it turns out people do that sort of thing. So this is going to help to detect and alert and prevent that, depending on the severity of your policy. Copilot, Microsoft Copilot is great in that regard because it doesn't train the model, but again, you should be vigilant. But this is a policy to take care of that sort of behavior of copying and pasting sensitive information into AI assistants. So again, admin units if we want to. This is a devices policy targeted to all users and groups. What have we got in the rules? Let's take a look at these rules by editing. Again, what have we got? Let's go to the very top, and we've got a ton of stuff in here this time. We've got loads of sensitive information types to try and detect content that may be in users' files on their OneDrives or Teams or SharePoint or wherever, or in their emails. And if it matches that content, and there is a ton of that stuff in here, and the insider risk level for adaptive protection, again, is the elevated risk level, then what we're going to do is we are going to audit only in this case, paste to supported browsers, audit only, but we could go more restrictive. We could block that if we wanted that paste functionality into those browsers with those AI assistants. We could get as restrictive as we wanted to there, depending on the level of risk in our organization that is acceptable to us. So there you go. Wonderful stuff indeed. Let's wind up the video now.
And there you go. Very, very important. I'm sure you'll agree. Some rich features in the new Purview experience for DLP. More to come. I encourage any organization to look at those adaptive protection features. Those are going to be ever more important as we continue into the age of AI and pasting things into AI assistants like ChatGPT. Absolutely crucial. Right, let's wind up this video. I want to thank you for your support, for being a subscriber, for being a member in this case. Do spread the word on the channel. If you know anyone who would benefit from being a part of our growing community and being a member of the channel, do tell them about it as we all move towards 10,000 subscribers, which is a milestone I've been having in mind since day one. We're nearly there, and it's all thanks to you. Right, I'll let you go. You all take care. Travel well, stay safe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.